Valerian Mendonca, an evangelist and proselytizer of nature consonant healthcare practice, got his first lessons in naturopathy and homeopathy some 20 years ago from a Jesuit priest. Valerian advocates that nutrition alone should suffice in the prevention and cure of diseases and as a necessary adjuvant to homeopathy, which is based on individualized prescription protocol. He avers that naturopathy should be the first choice, not an alternative healthcare option. He passionately promotes locally grown food for its health and socio-economic benefits. Valerian is also a marketing and brand communication strategist and continues to consult for clients. He has authored a science fiction ebook, The Future Was Always Here, on the possible healthcare system on an alien planet. The ebook is available on Amazon, but Valerian is right here. So can we all put our hands together and invite Valerian on the stage?
Greetings, friends. Today, we are going to have an encounter, a face-off. So are you all ready? Well, the face-off is not with me, but with yourselves. And this encounter is very, very important so that you'll understand the multifold benefits of fresh, locally grown food. So as I told you, your face-off would be with your own self. Now you call this as your alter ego, or refer it to as the yin and the yang, or the Jekyll and the Hyde, or the angel and the devil. So whom would you like to meet, or whom would you encounter? We'll get to know by the end of this presentation. Now you see, all of us have fallen sick. Okay? Now when we fall sick, you must have noticed that not every member in our family falls sick at the same time. If they do, you will see that the pace, intensity of each person is different. Somebody is affected very severely, while somebody very mildly. Even the frequency varies. Some of us fall sick very often, while someone falls sick or almost never. And even the pace at which you recover, that also varies. So now, we attribute this to our immune response. Each individual's immune response is different, and that's why we fall sick very differently. So if we fall sick differently, if our sickness is individualized, so don't you think that our healing process or healing steps should also be individualized? Right? So we cannot apply the same protocol for everybody. If somebody falls sick and is recovering from, say, malaria, another person also has got malaria, they need different sets of treatment because they are two different individuals who have two different types of immunity responding to two different situations. Now this is a human cell, and we have 30 trillion cells in our body. And the life DNA is to generate, that is, to procreate, to multiply, and then to operate, that is to function. And the third thing is growth, that is to grow, to evolve. So this is the life's DNA. And the whole purpose of this is for survival. The immunity is a collective intelligence of our cell to resist illness with the aim to preserving life. And this is the reason why every generation is better than the previous generation. You take it at a cellular level, you take it in the case of antibiotics. Why antibiotics are getting resistant? Because every strain of virus is becoming, or bacteria is getting more and more evolved. So survival is the key DNA of life. Now, as I told you that there are 30 trillion cells, human cells, but within us, there are 39 trillion microbes within us. You cannot do without them. They are there all over around us. They are there on your cell phones. They are there in your water bottles. They are there on your hands when you wash them. And they are there on your hands after you have washed them. So they are omnipresent. You cannot do without them. So millions of years ago, we made a pact with them that we will give them shelter and food, and in turn, they will work for us. Now, this is a picture of how the microbes look. Aren't they very beautiful? They are basically framables. In fact, when I first saw them, I thought I should make some coasters, to keep them on the table. Microbes are everywhere, as I told you. 95% of the microbes are good. Now, there was a human genome project where they mapped the genes of the human being, and they found that there are only 23,000 human genes. Only 23,000. But the number of microbial genes, the microbes in us and their genes, is about 10 lakhs. So they outnumber us. So are we human or we are unhuman? This is the question. Now, where do we get our microbiome from? Inside our mother's womb, humans are born sterile. And when we pass through the birth canal, billions of microbes from our mother cover each and every part of our body. And that is our first encounter. In fact, this is very important because humans who are born through C-section, that is cesarean, are known to be more likely to get asthma, immune disease, and even leukemia. So these microbes, which we encounter in the initial period of our life, along with mother's milk, it forms the first defense system. And it takes about 2 years for the microbiomes to actually come to its full bearing in a child, the point when they have the full immunity. Now, the mother's milk produces a short-chain sugar called oligosaccharides. Now, this oligosaccharide has no nutritional benefit for the baby. So why do mothers spend so much of energy to produce this molecule? It is to help feed those microbes which is developing the baby's immune system. Just see the intelligence. When we are adults, microbes become our first line of defense, fighting off germs that try to invade us, protecting their turf while protecting our health. So basically, the microbes are protecting themselves, but in the process, they are protecting us. Scientists have discovered that they can even spew out antibiotics, their own antibiotics. So we don't really need antibiotics if we take care of them within us. Now, the type of microbes in our body depends upon the location. Now, even in the hair, you'll find microbes on top of the hair, those who require oxygen. But those microbes that don't require oxygen are deep inside the hair, closer to the scalp. The normal microbial makeup of a healthy human includes a collection of bacteria, fungi, viruses, and archaea. Archaea are single-celled organisms which were previously thought to be microbes, but they are now classified as archaea. Collectively, they weigh about 3 pounds. That is about 1 kilo and 300 grams, which is approximately the weight of our brain. So next time you are on the weighing scale, so you know how much to deduct, because that's not your weight. 3 pounds is the weight of the microbes that we are carrying around with us. From the arid desert of the skin, to the villages on our lips, to the cities in our mouth, to the teeming metropolises in our stomach, even the tooth has got its very distinct neighborhood of microbes. And when food passes through our stomach, through our mouth, into the digestive tract, every microbe has got its own distinctive job to do. For example, you take the cellulitic microbe. The specific job is to break cellulose. Now, cellulose is something that is found, it's a compound which is found in vegetable, and it is something that human beings cannot digest. It cannot break it down. But this cellulitic microbe breaks it down into simple sugars. Now, this sugar is then taken up by respirators. Now, respirators consume the sugar as fuel and give us energy. Then further down the digestive tract, it is taken up by the fermenters. Now, the fermenters snatch this sugar and they use it as energy, and they give a byproduct, which is a trash of alcohol and hydrogen. So in a way, they are pooping in our body. It's a waste product of that particular bacteria. But this waste product is also used by syntrope, another bacteria which is deep inside our gut. They use this trash and convert it into energy. So all this energy is then absorbed by the cells of our digestive tract. Now what you see is that in the pre-industrial era, the microbiota in our environment influences the human intestine microbiome via direct contact of the soil and feces, and as well as our food. Our ancestors lived in close contact with the environment. In contrast, the human activities such as urbanization, industrialization of agriculture, and modern lifestyle has, along with antibiotics, pesticides, has actually depleted us of our microbiome. Many studies have shown large differences in the human gut microbiome of those people who are from the rural areas and for those who are from the cities. In fact, there's another study that I came across where Indian natives who have gone to UK have shown that their microbiome has depleted, has changed. Why? Because here they were in touch with the soil. But in UK, they don't have much contact with the soil. And also, probably, that research paper said, the use of toilet paper. Okay? So that also changes the whole microbiome in your body. So the microbiome influences 4 broad areas, that is nutrition, immunity, behavior, and disease. Beneficial microbiota in the gut can help digest food that humans would otherwise be unable to break down. Harmful microbiota, however, can cause damage as well as various gastrointestinal diseases. To survive, our microbiome co-evolved with us to be able to communicate with our body. The most important part for the bacteria was to tell the immune system not to kill them. But they also have a real motivation to keep our guts healthy. So some of them produce a messenger substance that help to educate the immune system, and others stimulate the gut cell to regenerate faster. There are latest research that has come out which says that they produce certain messenger substance which can talk directly to the brain. In fact, 90% of the body's serotonin, an important messenger substance, is produced in the gut. Some scientists think that microbiome does this to communicate with the vagus nerve, the information highway of our nervous system. Now, the microbiome causes a lot of diseases. It is associated with a lot of diseases. I'll just list them. Acne, dental cavities, diarrhea, then eczema, hardening of the arteries, autism, depression and anxiety, cancer, gastric ulcer, and malnutrition. Now, to explain to you all how it affects depression, there is an experiment which was done where healthy rats were fed microbes from a guts of depressed people, and they began showing anxiety-like behavior and symptoms that look like depression. One of the earliest symptoms of Parkinson is actually gut problem. If you look in the case of autism, again you know that autistic people are picky eaters. So probably it's the microbiome which is playing the role. H. pylori is a common cause of stomach ulcer and is associated with stomach and esophagus cancer. Hepatitis B and C increases the risk of liver cancer, and then there is the human papillomavirus which is associated with cervical cancer. There is also seen a connection between dental pathogen and osteoarthritis. You see, the particular bacteria called Porphyromonas gingivalis. Now this bacteria is actually found in the mouth, in the dental cavity. Okay? Somehow it leaks, and it has been found in the synovial joints of the hips and the knees. Okay, so there is a correlation to this. So if you're having, say, dental issues like a lot of tartar in teeth, a lot of cavities, dental decay, then probably you would like to research this area. Now we move our focus. I spoke about the human microbiome. There are the earth, Mother Earth has got, okay, it's a living organism. And as it was spoken earlier by our speakers, as human beings, we are made of 5 elements: fire, earth, water, air, and ether. And upon death, we are consigned to the 5 elements. Even in the Bible, it's mentioned from dust to dust. In fact, the original Hebrew, Adam, is the masculine word for Hebrew, in Hebrew, for the word Adama. And Adama means soil. So Adam literally means earthling, as described in the 2nd chapter of the Genesis. So the earth is pulsating living entity. About 50% of the soil that we walk upon is, air, water, space, and billions of organisms that include bacteria, fungi, viruses, and archaea. A teaspoon of soil has 100 million bacteria, fungi, and viruses. Soil, like humans, are different, and so do organisms thriving in them. So do people who live in these locations. Our soil is dying, that is due to urbanization, due to concretization. And this is how Bangalore is looking right now. So you can see the soil cover that's available there. So it is said that we have only 60 years of topsoil left as of now. I would like you all to watch a small clipping. It's a movie called The Symphony of Soil.
Once carbon is fixed into carbohydrates, it is available to become the many molecules that feed and form the living organisms of the soil.
When you're looking at the above ground part of the plant that most people see and the roots down into the soil, that plant is putting out foods. Every bit of the surface of that plant is pouring out foods to feed the proper sets of microorganisms in the balances that the plant requires. So it's putting out what's called in the scientific world exudates. The fruit, the blossoms, all of the surface leaves, bark, stems, everything on that plant is putting out an exudate for the purpose of growing bacteria and fungi. And that's really the only reason the plant's putting those foods out. Down in the root system, all of the roots, the structural roots, the lateral roots, the root hairs, the fine roots, they're all putting out foods to feed the bacteria and fungi. And of course, if a plant was putting out food that would feed a disease-causing organism, the plant would be dead. So when this plant growing its roots through the soil starts pumping out all this food, the bacteria grow, the fungi grow, and we have now 1 million bacteria per teaspoon of soil around that root system. We have, miles and miles and miles of fungal hyphae around the root system. So we've got a castle wall. We're protecting. And if the plant's doing that, how's it doing it? Through the exudates, through the foods that it's putting out. Simple sugars, protein, and then carbohydrate. What is that a recipe for? Cakes and cookies. So your plant is dumping cakes and cookies all over its surface, every single surface, putting out cakes and cookies to feed these bacteria and fungi so they grow to really high numbers and are protecting that root system from all of the diseases that would be trying to come in. So in a healthy soil that has the proper set of biology, that plant is going to be able to grow everything it needs to grow to protect that root. And of course, then if we've got all these bacteria and fungi growing, here come the predators of the bacteria and fungi. And when a protozoan eats a bacterium, it releases nutrients in a now plant-available form. They release nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, magnesium, calcium, iron, zinc, copper, you name it, the whole list of nutrients that your plant requires. They release those nutrients in a plant-available form, as long as we maintain that biology in the soil.
Yeah, so what we saw in this movie is that, the plants, they blossom, and they don't blossom, they don't give out fruits just because they love to eat it. They give out because the soil need it, and the organism within the soil need it because they need to survive. Okay, so what happens is usually we want to harvest all the fruits. We feel very bad when, one fruit falls down and is rotting down, and we say that, oh, I should have harvested yesterday. But then the soil needs it. And okay, this frame shows you how we actually treat the soil. The way we treat a soil is we use the gloves, and I think Miguel had very well spoken about, we treat the soil as a dirt. And in fact, we find a lot of parents telling the children that, you're dirting yourself, go clean up yourself. So probably we are getting into too much of hygiene kind of a situation. So now let's meet the people with the most diverse microbiome in the world. They are the Hadza hunters. They are the original hunter-gatherer tribes, inhabitants of Tanzania. They seek out the same plants and animals that our forefathers hunted and gathered for millions of years. It is the closest we could get to study the microbiota of our ancestors. Now, what do they eat? They eat berries which are found, wild berries which are found in the wild, which has 20 times more fibers and polyphenols. They have root vegetables, which is, rich with the soil microbiome. There are functional similarities between the soil, rhizosphere, and the human intestine. There was a study done in 2015 where scientists exchanged high-fiber diet of rural Africans with high-fat, meat-heavy diet of African Americans. Only after 2 weeks of high-fat and low-fiber diet, the rural Africans showed increased inflammation of the colon and decrease in butyrate, which is a short-chain fatty acid thought to lower the risk of colon cancer. Do you recollect this tree? Well, I came across the reference to this tree when I read one of the blog written by Miguel. Now, this is known as the baobab tree, and this is seen in the Disney film The Lion King, where the monkey Rafiki lives. Okay, and this fruit of this tree happens to be the staple food for the Hadza hunters, the Hadza tribes. The tree reaches a height of 5 feet 30 meters, and the trunk diameter is about 11 meters. Its trunk can hold about 120,000 liters of water for most of the year. And they use the fruit pulp as porridge, and it says that it has got so much of fiber that you have to forget dinner once you have had it for lunch. And this tree is there in Goa also. You'll find this tree in 3 places, one in Kepe, one in Pilar, and I believe the other one is in Raibandar. The Hadza tribe They do not use any antiseptic to wash their hands. What they do is they use the stomach acid of the animals that they have killed to wash their hands. And the bacteria from the stomach is probably what goes into them and to their tribe members. So they have done a study of the microbiome of people from Hadza, Malawi, Italians, and the USA. And they found that the Hadza has microbes which are actually now extinct among the Americans, but they do not fall sick. The Americans have taken so much of vaccination, so much of inoculation, that they have kind of eliminated those microbes from their body, whereas these people have it with them, but still they do not fall sick. So the key here is to have a biodiversity of microbes in your body. Then, I'm done. I'll fast. Now, I'm showing you this slide because it's, in most Goan homes, in the earlier days, we knew that, there used to be houses which had cow dung, and the floor was cow dung clad. Okay? Now, if you see that vitamin B12, the cattle, the sheep, the goats, the cows, they are not deficient in vitamin B12. What is the reason? One reason is that they have 4 chambers of stomach. In the rumen, there are enough of bacteria that makes vitamin B12. The other thing is that when they graze in the field, they eat some dirt along with it. Or not dirt, but soil along with their food, or along with the grass. And in the soil, there is an element called as cobalt, which is required for making vitamin B12. In fact, I'm showing this or explaining this to stress on the importance of our microbiome. There are experiments being done where they are doing poop transplant, where there are people who have got severe diarrhea because of when bacteria C. difficile has invaded their body, and then when they give a healthy poop transplant, they recover. But they also have found that that person had taken the poop from a healthy, obese person, and that person also developed obesity. So poop transplant from slim people to obese ones gave them more diverse microbiome and made them less sensitive to insulin. So I'm not recommending this, but what I want to tell you is that how important it is that we walk on soil which has all these elements in them. Now, there's another study where about 240 grams of apple have about roughly 100 million bacteria. And when you eat the apple for the extra fiber, flavonoids, and flavor, remember that you are gulping down 100 millions of bacteria. Now, there is one bacteria called Methylobacterium, which is said to give that taste or that flavor to the apple. The same bacteria plays its role for infusing a flavor in the strawberries. Now, the point is that our local organically grown food also probably has the role of such bacteria playing, because when you have a local food, a local tomato, a locally grown tomato, you'll find that the taste is very different from the commercial ones. So you are what you eat, and you are what your microbes eat. So if you eat healthily, we breed bacteria that's healthy. If you eat a lot of fast food, then we breed fast food loving bacteria. So your body is like a garden. It depends on what you grow. So when you eat locally grown fresh food, what you get is enriched native microbiome, and it's fresh from the farm to table in the shortest possible time, so there is no nutritional loss. It is harvested at the peak of freshness to ensure dense nutrient content and microbial activity. Seasonal fruits and vegetables retain more nutrients and flavor. So what do? We need to eat more seasonal and perennial fruit. Anthropologically, it is also recognized that when a certain race of people migrate to an entirely different geographic location, many racial features in the physiology will slowly change. The body will function best if the food you consume comes from the area of the earth from which you are living. Suppose you live on a patch of land, grow your own food and eat it. Within a month, you will see the distinct change in your health. The reason being is that food or that plant grows in that area because it is supported by that set of bacteria. The best way that you could actually come in contact with your soil is by growing microgreens. Like many people find it difficult to grow food plant at home. Microgreen is the easiest way. The point is here that apart from the immense nutritional benefit that you get from a microgreen, you are also in contact with the soil, which is going to give you some kind of inputs. These topics were already talked upon: having your own kitchen garden, local native food. Now, how many of you all have been eating this taro when it was raining? It's a good idea to actually stop by. This vegetable they grow just on the roadside. So it's a good idea if you could just stop by and pluck some of them, because when we do that, we are touching some of those soils, and those good bacteria is coming into our body. We need to support these people too. Often they're sitting along the highway. We zoom by at the speed of 80 or 100, and we do not have the time to stop by and, patronage them. Then we have this farmers market coming, so we need to make it a habit, a practice to go out to this market. And what I've been looking at is that, at these farmers market, we find people coming, but the kids don't come along. And those who are growing organic food, I would request them that, when they display this vegetable and when they are selling them, to allow some amount of the soil to remain on the plant. Because that way you will be doing us a favor, because that way we will be getting some of the microbes which are good for us. Now this is another good way of getting good microbes into our body. This is a 400-year-old tradition called Chikkal Kalo, which a festival where they play in the mud in Goa. And basically what they are doing is enriching them microbiome. This study shows here that, in fact, if you are with the soil, there is a virus called Mycobacterium vaccae, which actually helps to increase the level of serotonin in humans. So it will be a good idea if you just take the soil and smell it up. Take a walk to the forest. So basically, we talk about walking on soil. So this is a good way to actually enrich your microbiome. So if you have an enriched microbiome, you have a resilient immunity. And once you know that you are going to, when you're eating a food, and if you know that you are going to feed the 39 trillion cells, the cells which are much more than your cells, because they are going to keep you healthy, you will be going to and having the freshest of food, then you will be reducing your own carbon footprint, because this will reduce food coming from outside. That you just imagine truckloads of vegetable coming from, say, Belgaum or Bangalore, and it is carrying 90% water, 10% is nutrients, and those nutrients are deteriorated by the time it reaches us. So in the end, you have this little message with you. Either you pay the farmer a little more, because everybody has this issue, saying that, organic food is a little costly, or you pay the hospital a fortune or more. So, I don't know whether you have encountered the devil or the angel, the Jekyll or Hyde, but whoever you encountered, I presume that you will make peace with them and start eating right, eating fresh, locally grown food for your health. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerian. May I invite Mr. Daryl D'Souza to present a memento of thanks to Valerian Mendonca.